I already know that I'm gonna get a lot of heat for this video because in this video, I'm gonna be breaking down the top 7 characters that you should never play unless, and then I'm gonna give you the few examples of situations where playing that hero is actually one of the best things that you could do. If you like this content, please smash that like button because I already know I'm gonna get tons of dislikes for this video, but for now, let's just jump right into it. In no particular order, let's talk about the first character that you should never play, Bastion. Bastion has honestly been garbage tier ever since the shield nerfs. The problem is shields don't stay up enough to actually justify running a Bastion or a pirate ship. He's too hard to play and easy to counter. I think Bastion probably needs major buffs to be competitively consistent, but no one wants that except for Bastion mains, so I think that a rework would probably be the best going forward. Real quickly, if you're a fan of GameLeap content, we're in the process of expanding to Valorant and we would love your support. We're going to be including all the in-depth guides and goodness that you get on this channel, but for Valorant. So if you want to check it out, head on over and smash the subscribe button, but don't worry, we're still going to be pumping out tons of content for this channel. I hope to see you there. If you want to play Bastion, however, here are the times where you can whip him out and get some value. So the first example of a situation where you can whip out Bastion is that when you capped a point in overtime and the enemy has tons of ult advantage. You could surprise switch to Bastion to counter the enemy if you're trying to push the cart in OT. This works especially well when the enemy is not playing characters that is designed to counter you. Imagine they're playing a really sniper heavy comp, no Mei, no Junkrat, nothing like that, and they don't have the tools to counter you. Putting pressure on the enemy by playing a character that really counters what they're bringing to the table, brings a lot of value automatically, could be a way that you actually win a few team fights even against ult disadvantage. Now moving on to the second example of when you can play Bastion, when the enemy is literally spawn camping you. If they're spawn camping right out of your spawn, swap to Bastion, set up in spawn, and either pop out and catch people off guard, or simply zone them away from doors and swap right back. Now let's move on to the third and final situation in which you should whip out Bastion. This is the only combo where I would say that you're almost guaranteed to get some value out of Bastion as long as you have good synergy with the combo, which is Baptiste. Baptiste Bastion is an insanely powerful combo because you could set up plays where you peek corners and then put an immortality field behind cover that will really keep you alive and keep you from getting burst down. Keep in mind, you're still weak to CC like ROADHOG Cook, but at least you could prevent your death and try to get value before you get punished. If you have really good synergy, that could be one of the few times that you could get value on Bastion in this meta, just simply due to his burst damage, raw damage potential. Now moving on to the next character that you should never play, PHARAH. Yep. PHARAH's on the list, and it's a sad day. PHARAH is just not worth the skill required to get value out of her. She absolutely needs a pocket to see play, and until you're decent with her, you may fly around and do nothing but get zoned away from a single hit scan. If the enemy hit scan has a pocket like an Ashe or a McCree, you're just going to be a completely non-existent threat. Once people get better with PHARAH-based fundamentals, you could typically get more value on a different hero. And lastly, with Echo coming out soon, Echo's really good against PHARAH and probably just better at doing PHARAH's job than PHARAH is, so a lot of PHARAH's strengths are better found elsewhere. However, that being said, there are some scenarios which you should 100% play PHARAH to get some value. Let me break them down. The first one is if the enemy can't aim or doesn't have a hit scan. If you're trying to cap something like a first point Eichenwald and you notice that the enemy is playing something like Mei Junkrat and they don't have anything that can contest you, swapping to a PHARAH on the first point with a pocket is literally free. Now, usually after you take it with PHARAH, they're going to immediately switch to hit scan, in which you probably want to switch off. But the fact is, if you could take that first point for free, that will help you not get first point health, will free up the game, push you even further along the game, and give you more flexibility to swap up later. This is really powerful and not utilized enough. At the end of the day, PHARAH definitely needs specific counters to shut her down. Now, the second example is that the enemy can't aim, and you're only going to realize that if you play against them. But maybe if you're in a lower rank, if you're pretty confident at PHARAH, and you know that the enemy hit scans just can't threaten you, their time to kill is so low that you do not feel threatened, then sure, play PHARAH. There's no harm there. But like I said, as the hit scan players get better, if the hit scan player has any decent amount of skill, Divas, Ana's, Baptiste, there's so many different things that can challenge you and threaten you. It's really rough to play PHARAH in this landscape. Now let's move on to the second example where you can play PHARAH, and this is when the map is perfect for it. There are several maps like Oasis City Center, Oasis Gardens, Ilios Lighthouse, and Well. They have tons of buildings that really favor PHARAH's vertical mobility. If you can play the high ground and use the buildings to weave in and out of high ground cover, you can choose exactly when and where to engage and disengage. This makes a lot of her weaknesses mitigated because she can essentially block off effective LOS from hit scans until she's ready to put damage on them, makes them really hard to punish her. Now let's move on to the next character on our list that you should not be playing, and yep, this one's gonna give me a lot of heat, but it's ROADHOG. Here's the thing about Roadhog. He brings the least amount of team value to a match out of probably any character in the entire game. Team value. He feeds the enemy ult charge, he doesn't help create space very well, and he doesn't enable his main tank all that well. He doesn't even peel very good. Overall, even if you're popping in Roadhog, you put more pressure on your DPS and supports because you create so little space and you help your other members of your team so little. Out of most tanks, he is the most solo-oriented and rarely meta at the highest ranks. Playing him means that you acknowledge that you're going to make your team have a tougher time, so if you do play him, you absolutely need to pop off every single fight to make him worth playing. That being said, here are the best times to play him if you want to play him, and here's the best time to get value with him. Number 1, when you are better than the skill of the lobby. Tank queues will throw you all over the place. Sometimes you'll be a 3600 tank and you'll get into a top 500 game, and then the next game, you'll get into a flat 3K game. Because of this dynamic, if you're a Masters player and you're thrown into a 3K game, you want a character who needs no help and doesn't rely on enabling their teammates, but instead solo carries. You want the power to dictate fights and with picks, and Roadhog is one of the best characters to do that, especially when the lobby puts you in a position where you should not be enabling, but actually carrying, and the SR that it's putting on your team versus their team expects you to carry. Now moving on to the second example of when you should play Roadhog is when the enemy has no CC, no Ana. If they have no CC, no Ana, if the enemy is low in counters to Hog, he all of a sudden becomes unkillable. The problem is there are a lot of counters to Hog, but not always do enemies play those counters. Sometimes they're playing a full dive with a Genji Tracer. They don't have any sort of thing that could stun you. Sometimes they're not playing enough counters to shut you down. Sure, Hog could be easily shut down with a swap, but until that point, you could probably get a free fight and a couple of picks with Hog, and he might be a really versatile niche pick to whip out all of a sudden out of nowhere. Now moving on to the last example of a situation where you should whip out Roadhog is that when you're playing him with an Orisa. Pull hooks are still extremely powerful, but they need to be executed consistently, or else the value that you get out of this combo is not worth running a Roadhog instead of a Sigma. If you're a nasty Hog and not that good of a Sigma and you combo pull hooks over and over again, it could make it worth it. Now keep in mind, Roadhog is still a decent character, but there's just so many different characters that make things easier on your team or enable their other tanks better. This is why Roadhog is such a liability to play, and like I said before, it really relies on you popping off each and every team fight if you're gonna play him at all. Now moving on to the next character that you shouldn't be playing right now, it's Zen. Now Zen I know is a fan favorite, but poor Zen used to be one of the best heroes in the entire game, but he's now been relegated to F tier usually. Some weeks he'll see a resurgence, but only when double shield is enabled and you want to break them is Zen really that good. His problem is he's too fragile, and many characters do too much more than him. Lucio's almost always needed, and for the tiny scenarios where he's not the best thing to play, Brig has so many uses that you'll struggle to find a reason to play him over them. However, these are the few examples where a Zen can get even more value than Lucio or Brig. The first one is when you're playing a double shield composition and you want to add shield break pressure. Best pairing Zen with a Baptiste allowing you to break shields. In that composition, having someone like a Brig doesn't really contribute to shield break, and having someone like a Lucio that can split you in and out doesn't really help you when you're just trying to poke from a distance. Zen is the best in that exact situation. Number 2 about Zen is when you're playing a composition that dies from a distance and then you can use Discord to confirm targets. Think of a Widow Tracer dive with Mercy and Zen. While typically Lucio will just be better, if you're not that good of a Lucio but you're a really good Zen, you might be able to bring more value to the table. Now the last example of when you should play Zen is kind of echoing the previous tip, but if you're a god at Zen due to tons and tons of time practicing him, and you can duel a lot of your supposed counters, you can duel things like Doomfist, you can duel things like Tracers, and you're insanely bad at something like Lucio, playing an insanely good Zen with an Ana is way better than playing a garbage tier Lucio with an Ana. This is an evaluation you can make yourself, of course, but most of the time, playing someone who can peel with a main healer is far better than playing someone who also needs to be peeled in addition to your main healer. Now move on to the next character that you should not be playing really at all, and another one that's going to get a lot of people mad, but it's Junkrat. Now I know that a lot of you play Junkrat, and a lot of you are going to say I pop off in my games as Junkrat, and I understand all that, but hear me out here. Junkrat is poor in many situations, and in my opinion, he becomes a crutch that stunts a lot of players' development overall. He's a character that many players one-trick without understanding why he's good, when he's good, and Junkrat probably has one of the largest map differential win percentages across the board. That means on some maps, he probably has an insanely high win percentage, and on other maps, he probably has an insanely low win percentage. That being said, here are the examples when you should 100% play Junkrat and you can get tons of actual free wins off of him. This is a character that if you play him in the right situation, he can be worth more than any other DPS, but only in these situations. So kick it off with number 1, when you're on defense on a map that forces the enemy to play into Junkrat's strengths. Choke points, like if you're playing Hollywood first defense or Temple of Anubis first and second defense, Junkrat is insane. You can funnel damage through choke points, make it a nightmare for enemies to play around you. You have all sort of places to spam from and navigate to. It really plays into Junkrat's strengths, and it allows you to do damage to enemies without really even seeing them around natural cover and behind corners. See, the biggest thing about Junkrat and the biggest problem with Junkrat that I have is more than often, Hanzo is going to be a much better pick that's going to be way more versatile in many situations. That being said, on these maps in particular, Junkrat can do something that Hanzo can't, which is deal damage, massive amounts of spam damage, even if you're not facing the LOS of the enemy. Now moving on to the second time you should play Junkrat is that when you're playing a really heavy shield break comp, but maybe you're a hit scan player or maybe you're like a Genji player or something, you want to play a character that plays into this heavy shield break, but you don't have the mechanical skill to play something like Hanzo or another shield break character. So instead, you play Junkrat. He doesn't require that much mechanical skill. If you understand his kit and his character, you could still shield break with the team. Then moving on to the third and last situation in which you should play Junkrat is this is when you are being enabled by a pocket like BAP or Mercy to enable you to be stronger versus your weaknesses and to help your strengths. This should still be used on appropriate maps though, that being said, but if you're pairing something like a Mercy or a BAP with a Junkrat, you can get immensely more value comboing amplification or damage boost with Junkrat that can get you a lot of free fight wins and can actually help create those examples in ranked where you essentially never give the enemy a full team fight. Now moving on to the next character on the list, a character that you should not be playing is Orisa. Every once in a while, Orisa will become the best tank to be simply due to the other tanks being banned away. But let's talk about when Orisa is actually really good to play no matter what the meta. The first example is when you can get boot value, places like Ilios well. Essentially, really good Orisa pools can result in free picks. This is an example where it doesn't really matter what the de facto best team composition is. If you're really good at Orisa, you can bring enough value to the table and rank that it's just worth playing if you're really good at pulling people into the well or setting up a pull combo with your Lucio. Now, the second time you could be playing Orisa is when you're playing a Sigma in a shield break comp. Now, it might not be the best or meta always, but in ranked, a shield break comp can be exceptionally valuable. If your other tank is a Sigma player, playing Orisa to help them out and supplement each other can be a way that you actually become pretty strong together. And if you're playing it with heavy shield breakers such as Hanzo, you could bring a really powerful team composition to the table. Playing an actual team composition is always going to bring more power to the table than playing something like BALLHOG or some random Zarya or Orisa comp. So definitely don't be afraid to whip out this combo and understand that these two characters work pretty well together. Now moving on to the third and final situation that you could play Orisa in no matter what the meta is. When you're coming out of spawn in a scenario, let's say you lost the first point. You were playing something like Dive, or you were playing just a random tank, whatever it was, and you die. Now, what you could do is you could swap. You want to swap, maybe you want to swap to something like Ryan or some other tank, but you know that the enemy is going to try to snowball you on second point. You look at your allies, and what do you see? You see a Sigma that has ultimate, one of your teammates. You see a Mei that has Blizzard, one of your teammates. If you swap to Orisa, set up a pool to set up their ultimates. It's super simple. All you have to do is pull the enemy together. You get a Sigma, you get a Blizzard, you get more value out of those ultimates, and then all of a sudden, after that team fight is won, you can go back to spawn and switch it out. Essentially, you're just using her individual ability, that one ability, to set up an ultimate for your team to stop the snowball. Really powerful things. Now we're going to move on to the last character on our list, a character that you probably should not be playing. Now keep in mind, this character is the best hero on this entire list, but you really shouldn't be playing her that much. The character in question is Sombra. Now you might be saying, what the heck, Sombra? Sombra's insanely good. Yes, you're right. But here's the thing. Sombra has one of the lowest win rates across the board. The problem with Sombra is she's exponentially better in pro play and scrims and at the higher ranks than she is at the lower ranks. At the lower ranks, she is really, really terrible. She needs a lot of synergy to get value. She needs people to follow up on her hacks. She needs communication and people to actually do something when she has huge EMPs. Unfortunately, this is not going to be the case. And if you can get into the positions and have the mechanical skill required to get value on Sombra at the lower ranks, you could do so much more on something like Tracer, Doomfist, Reaper. All that being said, let's break down the two big examples of when you can play Sombra no matter what rank you are to get some value. So the first one is when you need to counter a specific hero and shut them down. Maybe there's a Hammond running rampant, just killing your team, no one's focusing him down. Sombra is the hardest counter. You shut that Hammond down immediately and you don't have to deal with him anymore. Essentially, he's gonna probably swap off after a couple of hacks. You literally just wait around for him and hack him. The next example is like something like a Doom. If the enemy Doom is like a Smurf, he's hard carrying his team, playing a Sombra and just waiting for him to try to gank your supports, that is the way you just shut him down. Sombra's an insanely good character at making 5v5 fights. You take yourself out of the equation, but you take out the enemy too. If that's something that's worth your time, then it could be worth it to swap to Sombra just to get that value. You basically don't have to do anything besides tunnel vision that one enemy. Now moving on to the last example where you could definitely whip out Sombra no matter what rank you are. This is just to swap to her, just to shut down an ult combo. This kind of echoes the same example with Orisa, where you swap to Sombra when you know the enemy has an ult combo waiting in the wings. Imagine that you know that a Nano Blade is coming out and you have nothing to deal with it. You could be playing a McCree or a Soldier or whatever, but you know that if they Nano Blade, they're just gonna destroy your whole team. Swapping to Sombra, waiting for the Nano Blade, the Genji to dash up, you hack him, he's left without a dash, he can't follow up with his blade. Or you can go on a flank, pressure the Ana, hack her, stop her from nanoing the Genji. There's a lot of different things that you can do to basically stop fight winning combos, and Sombra basically enables that. You could basically just use the hack's power level to abuse that interaction. You don't even need to bring anything else to the table, no follow-up, nothing like that. You're literally just shutting down one ultimate combo. All this being said, if you want to develop yourself as a player, become better and better every single season, definitely go check out GameLeap.com. Many of you message me and tell me that you're in a rut, you've been stuck in the same SR for many seasons. Do yourself a favor and go check it out and break through the GM. Anyways, that's all I have for you today. Any questions, comments, or if you just want to roast me due to my list of characters that you should not play, definitely let me know in the comments down below. Keep in mind that this list is primarily made for the vast majority amount of players. I know that if you're in GM or top 500, you might be able to get tons of value out of Sombra, you know, but a lot of these characters on this list is not very good at most ranks, and there's always a character that you usually could get more value out of, you know, Hanzo instead of Junkrat, many other characters instead of Sombra, Ryan instead of Orisa, and this is going to progressively happen as the roster expands. There's going to be characters that are just going to be better than other characters, just straight up, that bring more value to the table in more situations. But if you disagree or agree, definitely let me know. Anyways, that's all I have for you today. I'm Coach Mills, and until next time.